Like, come on, we need some sun.
Yeah, that's cool. We had 45 2 days
Mm,
ago.
cool. Yeah, it's nice when you get that. You guys get a lot hotter in the summer, so
Yeah, and it's humid too, so it's like you can't breathe when you go outside.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah. When I look back and I'm like, it's kind of cool because you shouldn't really complain because when the snow hits, you want that
Yeah.
45, right?
Yeah. The grass is always greener, you know? And then
It
that's like
is.
us too. We get a lot of rain. And so then once the rain hits, we're like, oh, we want the sun. But then it's too hot when the sun comes. So, anyways,
Yeah.
yeah.
So today we're going to talk about a number of things, but most importantly, of course, to me is Akasha Records. And I
Hmm.
haven't gone down that path. I'm in my 30s now, in my like early 20s. And actually, I
Mm.
stumbled upon it and I was like, what is this? And I learned some more. And then I learned some more. And I was like, okay, everything that we're going through in this life, may happen in another life. And then it may happen again
Mm.
in our future life, right? But I'm not the professional you are. So,
Mm.
Christina, do me a favor, introduce yourself, and of course, tell my audience where they can find you.
Yes. So my name is Christina. You can find me on all my socials at christina.soulempowered. I'm pretty active on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. The Akashic Records, the Akashic Records came into my life many years ago when I was going through my first of many awakenings. I like to refer it as a layered experience, right? It's this experience of, we have our first awakening often, and that's the big one. That's where we feel maybe a massive rock bottom. And in my experience with my own journey and with others, it's like peeling back an onion of all these not self pieces that we learned from the conditioning and the experiences we had growing up. It's all part of the process. But the Akashic Records came into my life when I was in the midst of a massive spiritual awakening. And what I began to learn through the records, I mean, once I learned how to access them, I went into my records every night for months straight. And I was receiving all of this information around my soul journey. Yes, past lives, like, you and I spoke, past lives are a big piece of the records, but that's one part. We can learn about karmic lessons. These are lessons our souls want to learn specifically on this path for greater expansion. Everything is with the intention of greater expansion because our soul has an intention of expanding into our highest frequency in this experience. And yeah, I mean, ask away, ask all the questions, but I could talk about the records forever.
I know I should have asked you if there's a time limit to how deep we can get into this. So
We could do many episodes on just the
many,
records.
I know, right? So actually, let us know what are the Akasha records and how does it apply to the person on an individual level, just so they understand what we're discussing.
Yeah, so I like to explain the Akashic Records as an energetic database of all of our soul's experiences. It contains everything. And you could think of the records as this big filing cabinet, and we each have a drawer in that cabinet. So we each have a record within the records. And you can connect. So I also like to say the records are a frequency we connect with. They are an energy. It's not necessarily somewhere we go. The records are also within us because our souls are within us and our souls hold all of this information. So when I connect with the records, this energy, this frequency, I am connecting with your higher self to receive this information from the records. A lot of clients will say, oh, I thought that. Oh, I felt that. Oh, that was something I was obsessed with as a kid. This was something I've always been scared of. It's because this is already within us. And so, my job when I help you connect within your records is to help you access what's already there.
Is that difficult for people to tap into to learn about themselves when they're exploring with you through their Akasha records?
Do you mean like when I'm receiving stuff, is it hard for them to receive that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, it depends on the level of awareness. And I also say how much the person trusts their own gifts, their own connection. right? Because I can be doing a session with a client and we can be in their records and they might be right there with me, maybe not receiving the exact same information, but being like, oh, yeah, that rings true. That feels true. That resonates. Other times, I've had sessions with clients where they're like, I have no idea what you're even talking about. But then when we get to the root of it, there's a lot of fear in the way. There's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of doubt, limiting beliefs. And that's our denser energy that can actually block our channel. It's the human stuff.
And I'll tell you why I asked that question, because there's some times where when I was going through it, I was trying to understand, and it could be a little bit overwhelming for someone who's new
Hmm.
and doing it alone. Like, I guess many things in the life, right? Now, when you're working with someone and you mentioned their abilities and their senses, and you mentioned their gifts, right? Once they start to have things revealed to them,
Hmm.
what are maybe some of the obstacles that you see that they experience when they're engaging in it?
Mm. Yeah. First and foremost, I want to say, our connection to our intuition and our deeper soul information, this is a muscle we build. It's a trust muscle. And for me, before I even learned how to go into my Akashic records, I was meditating every day. Not that you have to meditate, but when we meditate, the idea is we become aware of all of our stuff. You know, the point of meditation is to separate ourselves from all of this in the mind, right? The noise, the distractions. And so the more success we have learning how to connect within our records depends on how aware we are, how much we're able to be present and open to receive. So I like to say that piece first because, that was a big precedent before I learned how to go into my records. I was meditating, I was receiving stuff from my grandpa who had recently passed in my dreams. And I also like to say, before I even stepped onto this path, I was the skeptic. Like I was the person, I remember like years ago, my sister, she wanted me to come to a psychic party. And I was like, oh, I don't do that stuff. And then I was thrust into this big awakening journey, which was very uncomfortable. I had lots of pain and past trauma coming up. And in the process of healing so much of that stuff, my channel began to open. I also began to trust more of my inner experience. I was becoming more aware, more present. And that played a huge factor in being able to then connect within my records.
Can it be used as a way to heal past wounds, past trauma, and maybe uncomfortable situations that you have gone through or that you're currently going through?
1000%. So, and there's lots of different reasons for this. One, the frequency of the records is a higher frequency. It's an eighth dimension frequency. When we think about ascension, okay, and I could talk for hours on this piece too, but there's this idea, oh, we need to ascend. Well, we don't actually go anywhere to ascend. In order to ascend, we have to descend into our shit, right? We have to like clear all the dense energy, all the stuff taking up space within ourselves. And then our energy naturally expands. The energy in the records is a high frequency energy. So when you're connecting with the records, that in itself is healing. You're receiving this similar like a sound bath that you might go to. You're receiving a higher frequency that's beginning to move the denser energy within you. And then we have being in the records and what you're receiving, the awareness of some of these pieces can help shift your perspective on why I had to go through that thing, why I had to experience that. And not even why I had to, why I chose to, because our soul chooses everything we're going to experience in this lifetime. And that's going to be controversial for people because the human in us wants to believe that in some ways we're a victim to our circumstance. It allows us to stay stuck in the pain. But when you go into the records, what you quickly realize, and this is a big piece in the work I do with clients, is you chose all of this very specifically, and not just to expand in this lifetime, but you chose it because it also connects to all the other patterns you have from other lifetimes. So that relationship that you have, not you, but like someone that you have with your mom that feels all these different ways and you've experienced all these different things, you have had that relationship with your mom in a different life through different bodies, through different identities. but the themes of the contract are the same. And you're replaying that in this life to begin to heal through it with higher awareness.
I wonder how difficult that's for someone to accept because if I look at my life, and yeah, we're both like, I don't know, Taryn, I don't know, Christina, right? But it's like, I look at everything that I went through, and it took me years to understand that the majority of my issues was because of me,
Mm,
right? I played a part, I allowed the people around me, I allowed the behavior, I tolerated whatever the case is. Majority, if not all of the issues was my fault.
mhm,
And then I look at some people where they're the total opposite. The majority of my issues is everyone else's fault but my own,
mhm,
right? And for them to cross that bridge, they can't cross that bridge because if they were to cross that bridge, they know at the end of it is a mirror showing them everything that they've done to contribute to it. When you're working with someone and you're helping them cross that bridge to understand that, hey, you have agency, you have power, you have control, are there stumbling blocks that they may face to accept that, you know what, this problem that's been bothering me over here, it's actually because I did this, which created the problem.
mhm. Yeah, there's a couple things that come up for me there as I was listening to that. I'm no stranger to hard experiences. I think that's why I found the Akashic Records so transformative for me. It gave me back my power from things that I experienced when I was very little that felt out of my control. And, just being able to see these experiences from a different lens that what if my soul chose this? I didn't have to be the victim anymore. I got to feel more in control of what I was moving through. So there was almost like this, yeah, this empowerment I got to experience through it. And I say that because somebody could be listening to this and being like, yeah, okay, lady, this is all my fault. And like might be like not very happy with what I'm saying. And I want to say, I get it because there are some things that happen to us where it's like, it really sucks. And we don't want to discount that. We don't want to invalidate that that's a real part of us showing up. That's like, that story has become a part of our identity. Who are we without that story? I also like to think that sometimes there are certain things that I can't do for a client if they haven't gotten to a certain level of suffering. And that sounds bad, but I think sometimes we have to get to this place where we are in such a state of fight and we can't fight that identity, that story, that piece anymore, that we then are forced to surrender into a different experience, into a different perspective, into a new path.
Would that mean then, because I'm looking at that example you gave where a certain level of suffering, and it reminded me of like those who are going through addiction, right? They suffer, then when they hit rock bottom, they have to hit it themselves. We can't hit it for them. The support system I'm talking about right now, right? So when they actually realize that, you know what, I can't get any lower, let me begin to climb out of it. Is that the type of suffering you're speaking of where they've at least done the foundational work and then you may come in and say, okay, let me pull you up out of that and now we're ready to go forward? Or is it
Mhm.
something else?
Yeah, I mean, that's one example of it. Addiction is a huge piece. I've always, well, I shouldn't say always, this journey has helped me see that there are, I mean, everyone in my life, but there are particular people I'm thinking about, my loved ones, where this has helped me learn how to release control, is knowing that they have their own path, their own journey. And there's that saying like, you can bring a horse to water, but can't make it drink.